Here are the progressive news stories for today. First of all, don't forget to request your absentee ballot. Now's the time. There's 30 days. That should be enough time to get it, fill it out, and get it back. You can do it at unt.blue. It's kind of Unite Blue, but I don't know why they didn't just use Unite. But anyway, it's unt.blue/ballot. That's where you go to get that stuff. And now, here are the headlines for today. Okay, wait a minute. Can you say cotton picking minute anymore? Or is that too, is that no good? Oh, here's all my images. All right, a new animated short film being released yesterday. It features the storytelling and range of frontline organizations and activists explaining to viewers that another world is not only possible, but represents a beautiful alternative worth fighting for. The images in the film feature a future in which humanity and global communities finally escape the grip of neoliberal capitalism. Can you even imagine it? Escaping the grip of despair, which stems from the interconnected crises of climate destruction, economic inequality, and the ravages of a pandemic that expose these entrenched injustices worldwide. They needed to be exposed. I wish, millions of people didn't have to die across the world for it. The film, entitled Message from the Future 2, The Years of Repair, is the sequel to last year's Message from the Future with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Remember that? That was amazing. And runs with the idea that the year 2020 became the historic turning point. And I sure hope so. I hope it isn't the top of the roller coaster ride. Wait, I have the film. Let's watch a little piece of the film, shall we?
Looking back, it's hard to believe that we've rebuilt our community from the ground up with our own hands. The first seeds were planted way back in the terror and tenderness of the pandemic. And then change bloomed in the streets, in the fire and struggle of the uprisings. Around here, we'll never forget the day that the last prisoners were released, walking out into the arms of their loved ones. The easy part was finding work. The Community Care Corps was always looking for people in those days, whether for universal family care, burying border walls, or green new public housing, going up one pod at a time. Yep, it was a good time for busy hands.
Funny, thinking back to the first wave of the pandemic, that's what you really remember. Hands. Washing, scrubbing, disinfecting, washing again, picturing each other's hands, all the hands that had touched whatever we were touching, the hands that packed the box, that picked the tomato, that planted the seed, the hands that stroked the brow, that said goodbye. The hands were us, all of us. That web of hand-to-hand, breath-to-breath relationships was a reminder. We are all entangled, making each other sick, keeping each other alive. That was just one of the lessons of COVID-19. It started in the first great pause, when the smog cleared and the rich fled the cities, when poverty dropped its disguise and racist inequality drew the map of the disease. As the roar of the traffic faded, we arose to birdsong and ambulance sirens. The virus showed us what was truly essential. And we learned again and again that so many of us doing essential work were being treated as sacrificial. From nursing homes to detention facilities, meatpacking plants and fulfillment centers, the virus exposed the cruelty of these warehouses of efficiency and profit. Then things got worse. In 2023, super droughts led to mega floods. Locusts carved a path across continents and hyper typhoons drove millions from their homes. COVID-23 raced through storm shelters and refugee camps, supplies ran out again. Meanwhile, dinosaurs roamed the halls of power, bellowing that more sacrifice was needed. But every time they cranked up that rusty old machine called economic growth, the cloud of sickness and death grew.
And we couldn't breathe. Couldn't breathe from the asthma in our polluted communities, from the smoke of those fires. We couldn't breathe with a knee on our necks, in the clouds of tear gas as we shouted, "Black Lives Matter." And that is how the virus changed everything. We finally understood that we couldn't keep patching up the same broken systems. We had to build something new. What was needed was a spark. That spark was us. After months of organizing, the viral rent strike was like a starting gun. Then came the essential workers strike. Delivery drivers, street cleaners, and farm workers got together and said, enough. This time, people didn't just clap from their balconies. We flooded into the streets to join together. One of the leaders was Luciella, a young food courier. When a police bullet stole her life, the crowds exploded in size and then exploded again, spreading across borders like a counter-virus. The sparks look different in every country as the wildfire strikes leapt across borders. Economies ground to a halt, this time blockaded by workers.
It didn't end in a very happy note, but it does turn around. So I do encourage everyone to go and check that out. There's a live event with members of the team behind the film, including Naomi Klein, today. You can go to theleap.org. Again, theleap.org. And, you can watch the rest of it too, which is, it turns positive. But yeah, it's a little bit stark when you see everyone's just hoping that, as Trump said, this virus will wash away and everything will go back to normal. But we all know that's not going to happen. So we'll see what happens. Stick together, as my mother said, when you're going through something dangerous. Stick together. House Democrats, or House Progressives, rather, tore into the pharmaceutical industry chief executives on Wednesday during a congressional hearing on big pharma profiteering. Katie Porter, our hero, verbally eviscerated one CEO for more than tripling the price of critical cancer drugs, pointing out that while those drugs didn't get any better, nor did the cancer patients, a price gouging earned him millions of dollars. Toward the end of Wednesday's nearly 4-hour session, 3 of the 4 members of the squad, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, all women, I might point out, slammed the CEOs over what Ocasio-Cortez called the exorbitant cost of life-saving medications. Here we have Katie Porter speaking. Oh, here we have a commercial, because somehow you have to watch a commercial before you can hear Katie Porter speaking. Hold on, I muted it just for your benefit.
Do you know what this number is? Does it ring any bells?
But I think you're referring to my compensation in some way.
Yeah, well, in some way. This was your compensation in 2017 for being CEO of Celgene. And that's a lot of money. It's 200 times the average American's income and 360 times what the average senior gets on Social Security. Now, of that 13 million, about 2.1 million came from your company hitting yearly earning targets. And more than half of the bonus formula was based on those targets. Any increase in the price of Revlimid would also increase your bonus by increasing earnings. Isn't that right, Mr. Ellis?
If revenues increased and expenses did not, then earnings would be enhanced.
Thank you. Mr. Ellis, in fact, the Oversight Committee found that if you
compensation.
hadn't increased the price of Revlimid, you wouldn't have gotten your bonus. Mr. Ellis, do you know how much you personally received in bonuses over 2 years, the last 2 years, just because Celgene raised the price of this one drug, Revlimid?
I receive very generous compensation, but I don't know the exact number that you're referring to.
In fact, you personally received $500,000 personally just by tripling the price of Revlimid. So to recap here, the drug didn't get any better. The cancer patients didn't get any better. You just got better at making money. You just refined your skills at price gouging. And to be clear, the taxpayers spent $3.3 billion on Revlimid, 3.3 Medicare, $3.3 billion. If the price of Revlimid had only been increased to reflect inflation, the cost would be about $286 today, according to the Fed's inflation calculator, $286 per pill.
Awesome. Maybe Katie Porter can, that was from The Guardian, obviously. Maybe Katie Porter can moderate the next debate. I think that would be fantastic, don't you? We also have a clip right here from Rashida Tlaib doing the same deal, eviscerating.
So I also know that the drug companies frequently mislead the public by claiming charitable programs help ensure that patients who need medications can get them. But those programs do not cover everyone, and they are not reliable for patients, and they actually drive up the cost for many of my residents. In fact, I actually asked Lisa, who is on Social Security, if she was able to access such charitable relief, and she had no luck. Documents obtained by this committee, Mr. Schultz, suggest that these programs actually serve drug companies' own financial interest. Mr. Schultz, does your company donate to third-party independent charities which covers Medicare beneficiaries' out-of-pocket costs for Copaxone?
We do contribute to charities that have the purpose to secure access.
Great. So, Mr. Schultz, yes or no, would you consider donations to these foundations to be financial investments?
No, I would not consider it to be help.
Well, let me tell you why you're misleading us right now. Internal documents provided to the committee show that Teva company did view these programs as financial investments, even described them that way. In your own 2008 Copaxone work plan, which is Exhibit 37 in your materials, estimated that the company would lose over $11 million in sales if it reduced its, quote, investment in Medicare Part D grants by $44.3 million, as you can see here. The work plan also estimated that Copaxone net sales would decline by $45 million in 2011 if your company were to, quote, eliminate Medicare PAP investment. So, Mr. Schultz, it seems that Teva company expected Copaxone sales to decline if it decreased donations through these grants. Is that correct?
This is more than 10 years before I joined the company, and
it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear, Mr. Schultz. In my district, Mr. Schultz, we call this a side hustle. Your pharmaceutical company makes these so-called charitable donations so you look like you give a shit about sick people. But in reality, these are just another scheme by your corporation to make money off of sick people. Mr. Schultz, Lisa needs her medication to live. She's not part of a hustle and should.
That's right. Go, Rashida Tlaib. That was fantastic. These guys are like murderers, right? These people who are making the money, raising the money so that the drugs are unaffordable, so that people can't get the drugs that they need to live. By the way, most of those drugs who were funded, the research and development of those were mostly funded by taxpayer money, because taxpayers fund research and then companies profit and privatize off that research. So that's a problem, but how wonderful is it to see these women speaking truth to power? Here's a question. I'd like to hear your thoughts about it. You can put them in the comments on Facebook. I'm watching the comments. Do these people who are being taken to task, these pharmaceutical reps, do they realize that they are complicit in murder? That their earnings have blood on them? And do they just not care? I wonder if there's anyone who's like, well, I never thought of it that way before. I'm killing people in order to make money. I was just doing what capitalism tells me to, and I'm a success, even if secondary to my success is murder. We got a screwed up system here. But hopefully another way is possible, as that movie we played at the beginning is going to show. I'm looking forward to seeing that. In other news, following Tuesday night's nearly unwatchable debate between Donald Trump and Democratic nominee, former Vice President Joe Biden, the Commission on Presidential Debates says it's making format changes for the two remaining debates in an effort to curb what they call crosstalk and foster a more substantive discussion of policies. I have an idea. How about instead of a debate, just two interviews? And you can cut back and forth. But they're not even in the same room. It's fine. One question to both candidates, and they can answer. The commission did not elaborate on any specific proposals, but said that it is considering multiple ideas. How about that one I just said? I'm sure it wouldn't get you the viewers that you require or that you like. Blood sport. Americans are just as bad as Romans who watched people put to the lions for sport. They want blood sport on their telly, not reasoned debate. So this might be about the ratings. Anyway, the commission did not elaborate on any specific proposals, but said that it's considering multiple ideas and will announce detailed measures in the near future. Fox News host Chris Wallace was criticized for his inability to control the circus, which some observers, like ACT.tv regular John Nichols of The Nation, attributed to the failure of Wallace and his team to basically control the mics. I hope they get that ability. But as I said yesterday when James was on the program in our long debate recap, that if Wallace was able to cut Trump's mic and he was still just standing there yelling, he would look even more insane than he did debating Joe Biden this past week. All right. Finally, that's Chris Wallace. I think the only reason that Trump agreed to do the debate is because there was a Fox News host doing it. But I think the next person is PBS. So maybe calm it down a little bit. PBS is more calm, reasonable. All right. Leaders from across the country and across the whole world have promised to turn environmental degradation around and put nature on a path to recovery within a decade. Isn't that the kind of promise you like to see? The commitments, which come 2 days before a UN biodiversity summit in New York, include eliminating plastic leakage to the oceans by 2050. Hey, why don't we just eliminate plastic? The fossil fuel industry probably wouldn't be thrilled about that because they're made out of petroleum. But anyway, stop it from leaking into the ocean is good. It's a good start. They also want to incentivize banks and businesses to value the natural world. Yay. We don't seem to be successful at undermining capitalism as we watch it undermine itself and eat everything in its path. So maybe we can switch around the drivers. Valuing the natural world. That would be an enormous change in perspective for most people that I run into. Not my friends, but the people I run into. The leaders identify unsustainable production and consumption as a key driver of environmental crisis that require urgent and immediate global action. Remember when we discussed this with one of our, I believe it was either Alexander Kaufman, who's coming on the show in just a few minutes. When we discussed this with him last time, he said, if someone puts it off 15 years, they're not serious. But when they make a promise that within 10 years, a decade, that is like often within and very close to the term limit of the people that are in power. So they will be held responsible for their promises. So it's a plus. I'll ask Alexander how he feels about it. I see that he is here. So we're going to go to that in just a minute. Well, I bring you this final story. More Than a Vote, the collective of athletes headlined by basketball superstar LeBron James, announced yesterday that its initiative to increase the number of poll workers in Black electoral districts has amassed 10,000 volunteers since it began. The effort, which is called We Got Next and is a collaboration with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, will focus on the next phase of their push on 11 cities where significant poll worker shortages remain. Not only that, but Trump is like calling out the Proud Boys to go secure the elections, which means show up with a gun and menace and terrify people. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund said in a statement that increasing the number of poll workers is critical to fighting attempts at voter suppression. You can go to morethanavote.org to find out how you can help fight voter suppression in Black communities. You are watching Waking Up with Julianna Forlano. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Hit the like button. It does help. YouTube is rife with non-progressive voices. We're trying to put some more progressive voices out there. So thank you for watching and thank you for sharing. I'm Julianna Forlano. You can find me on Twitter. Act.tv is on every platform. So find us there.